The loneliness nobody talks about. Your phone lights up. A notification. A message. Someone liked something you posted. The group chat is moving. Somewhere, in a little glass rectangle, dozens of people are active, connected, alive. And yet, there it is, isn't it? That hollow feeling. The one that shouldn't be there given how much is happening on the screen. The one that arrives just as you put the phone down, or sometimes, and this is the strange part, while you're still holding it. If you felt that the ache beneath the noise, the quiet sense that despite all the pinging, scrolling, and reacting, something is still missing, this audiobook was written for you. Before we go any further, I want to say something. There is nothing wrong with you. This is not a personal failure. It is the loneliness of our time. This kind of loneliness is different from the loneliness people have always known. It doesn't only arrive when you're sitting alone in a quiet room. It arrives in the middle of a party. It arrives while you're scrolling through a feed full of smiling faces. It arrives, sometimes, in a room full of people who know your name but not your real life. It's the loneliness of the surface, of stimulation without substance, of being seen but not known, of connection that is everywhere, and of intimacy that is almost nowhere. Understanding that distinction, truly understanding it, is where everything changes. So, let's begin. What this loneliness is really asking for. Loneliness in this generation doesn't creep in the way it used to. It no longer waits for the silent hours after everyone has gone home. It slips in while notifications are still pinging. At the same time, the group chat is live, and a dozen faces glow on your screen in a video call. Somehow, through all that noise, none of it reaches you. You react, you scroll, you tap the heart, but there is still that hollow echo, the kind no emoji can fill. The first thing to understand is this: loneliness today is rarely about being alone. It is about depth, about trust, about meaning. It is about the gap between how many interactions you have and how many of them truly touch you. That's why adding more group chats, more social plans, more connections rarely fixes anything. You don't need more. You need something different, something slower, something that finally reaches the part of you that has been quietly waiting to be met. Here is a practice that can make things clearer almost immediately. I call it a connection audit. For 1 week, keep a simple running list. Every time you interact with someone in person, online, or over the phone, jot down how you felt afterward. Not what was said, but how you felt. Lighter or heavier? More yourself or strangely invisible? Seen or just present? By the end of the week, a pattern will emerge. Most interactions will feel neutral or oddly hollow. A handful will leave you feeling genuinely present and alive. Those handful, they are the ones this audiobook is about. They are the ones worth building a life around. That simple list can explain everything. Why you feel lonely despite being social. Because not all social contact is a genuine connection. Your nervous system, your body, your heart knows the difference, even when your calendar doesn't. There is something else worth noting. Many of us have become very skilled at running from this feeling. We drown it out with distractions, scrolling, streaming, overworking, overscheduling, anything to keep the quiet at bay. When the quiet comes, the feeling surfaces, and the feeling is uncomfortable. But here is what I have come to believe, and what every chapter of this audiobook is built on. Loneliness is not merely an enemy, it is a messenger. It points to something neglected, a need for closeness, for honesty, for shared purpose. Sometimes, simply for your own compassion toward yourself. When you stop numbing it, you can finally hear what it is asking for. And what it is asking for, almost always, is not more noise, it is more of the real. There is another layer, one that many people recognize but rarely say aloud. Many of us have mistaken independence for strength. We have built lives that take pride in not needing anyone, as if needing were a weakness. We keep our walls high because the risk of rejection feels too steep. But genuine resilience is not about never needing. It is about learning to need wisely. It is about choosing the people who can meet you halfway and letting yourself be known by them, even a little, even imperfectly. That is what we are going to explore together, chapter by chapter. Not with grand revelations, but with small, honest, very human shifts, the kind that, woven together over time, change everything. Why am I lonely when I'm connected? A significant part of the problem is that what we mistake for connection is often just stimulation. Quick exchanges, fleeting comments, and performative gestures, they light up your brain for a moment, but they don't satisfy that deeper need for human presence, understanding, or belonging. Until you see that, it's easy to get stuck chasing more of the same. More scrolling, more group chats, more digital noise, without realizing that none of it will fill the quiet ache you carry. The illusion of connection. Here's what's actually happening neurologically. Your brain is wired to recognize real connection through specific cues: the sound of someone's voice, their facial expressions, the synchrony of shared laughter, and the unmistakable sense of someone's full attention. Digital communication delivers only fragments of those signals, delayed, distorted, flattened into symbols. A heart emoji or a thumbs up feels nice for a moment, but it can't replace the warmth in someone's eyes when they truly understand you. Those little digital cues trigger dopamine, the quick notice me high, but they don't activate the deeper responses tied to trust, safety, and belonging. That's why you can rack up hundreds of notifications and still feel like nobody actually knows you. The platforms themselves are not designed for intimacy. They are designed for attention. Notifications, likes, and comments, they deliver tiny jolts that make you feel noticed for a moment, then vanish as quickly as they arrive. You refresh, searching for the next hit. Your nervous system learns to crave the spike, not the substance. And when the buzz fades, the loneliness remains, often sharper than before. A simple way to observe this in your own life. For 3 days, after each social media session or round of texting, write down one word that describes how you feel. Calmer, happier, neutral. Restless, lonelier. Most people quickly notice the same pattern. Passive scrolling or shallow exchanges usually leave them neutral or worse. Even one meaningful 10-minute call with a trusted friend can leave them feeling grounded for hours. Seeing this in black and white is important. It stops you from expecting shallow interactions to meet needs they never could, and it points you toward what actually works. The trap of comparison. Social media also amplifies loneliness by warping our perception of others' lives. It feeds us curated snapshots of joy and closeness, beautiful moments, full tables, laughing groups, and something insidious happens. We start to believe that everyone else is more loved, more connected, and more fulfilled, that our loneliness is an outlier, maybe even something shameful. And that belief that everyone else has what you're missing pushes you to withdraw even further. Reaching out when you feel this way requires courage you don't have, when you're convinced the imbalance is about you. One practice that interrupts this. Every time you catch yourself comparing your life to someone's highlight reel, pause. Write down 3 concrete connections you had that day, no matter how small. A stranger's smile that caught you off guard, a genuine moment with a coworker, a conversation that left you feeling, even briefly, less alone. These moments already exist in your life. The algorithm is just very good at getting you to ignore them. The science underneath. Let me explain what dopamine is doing here and why it keeps you stuck. Every like, every notification triggers a tiny burst of this neurotransmitter. In a natural environment, dopamine motivates us to explore, seek, and accomplish. But digital platforms hijack that system, offering constant, low-effort rewards that train you to chase stimulation rather than genuine satisfaction. Here is the catch. Dopamine does not bring peace or belonging. It never could. For that, Your brain needs different, slower chemicals, oxytocin and serotonin, the ones released by shared laughter, eye contact, real conversation, and the touch of someone you trust. When your nervous system is constantly flooded with microbursts of dopamine throughout the day, it numbs your sensitivity to the real world. Life starts to feel oddly flat, even in moments that should feel rich. And there is something else the science shows us, the paradox of choice. Technology hands us seemingly unlimited options for friends, communities, and connections. On the surface, that feels like freedom, but two things tend to happen. First, the sheer number of choices makes it harder to commit to deepening any one bond. You're always wondering if someone better is out there. Second, the illusion of abundance lowers the effort you put into existing relationships because replacements always feel a swipe away. The result, a world of options and a quiet famine for closeness. Reclaiming real contact. The way back is not dramatic, it is deliberate. Start with one experiment. For 1 week, have one deeper, real conversation each day. It doesn't have to be profound, just 10 uninterrupted minutes, with both people fully present. No phones. No half attention. It could be with anyone you feel even slightly comfortable with, a friend, a sibling, a coworker, or someone new. The content matters less than the attention you bring to it. Share something real from your day. Ask something genuine about theirs. By the end of the week, most people notice something unexpected. Even if their total number of interactions has dropped, they feel calmer, less restless, more grounded. Because your nervous system is finally getting what it has been asking for. Think of your relationships in 3 layers. Your core circle, 2 to 5 people you trust deeply and can actually lean on. Your middle circle, friends and colleagues you like but don't fully open up to yet. And your outer circle, acquaintances, casual contacts, and the wider digital periphery. Once you see where people actually fit, it becomes easier to invest your energy where it counts and to stop expecting your outer circle to give you something it was never designed to give. Loneliness, while connected, isn't proof that something is broken in you. It reflects how our social world has drifted from what human beings actually need. And the drift can be reversed not overnight, but step by step, one real conversation at a time. Escaping the cycle of crowded loneliness. There is a particular kind of loneliness that might be the hardest to explain to someone who hasn't experienced it. You're at a party, or an office, or a gathering of people whose names you know. Conversations swirl all around you. Somewhere, laughter rings out. And yet you're nodding along, offering polite smiles, trading small talk, and inside, you feel invisible, as if no one in this room actually sees you. As if you could quietly disappear and the evening would continue exactly as before. This is crowded loneliness, and it has become almost a defining feature of modern life. Proximity is not intimacy. The first thing to understand is this: proximity is not intimacy. Being in a room with other people, even those you like, does not automatically create connection. Your nervous system doesn't respond to nearby bodies. It responds to specific signals, mutual attention, honesty, and the sense that who you actually are is welcome in this space. When those signals are absent, your nervous system notices. You can spend hours surrounded by activity and still feel completely alone. Not because anything is wrong with you, but because the environment is not providing what your system is wired to need. The second thing to understand, waiting for someone else to close that gap will almost always leave you disappointed. Most people in social spaces are absorbed in their own discomfort, distraction, and carefully maintained surface. Very few will naturally step toward depth. So if you want to feel seen, you will need to be the one to initiate, even gently, even briefly. A useful goal to set for yourself before any group situation: have one real exchange. Just one. Not 20 pleasant nods. One 10-minute conversation in which both of you are truly present. Give that person your full attention. Ask something that nudges beyond the automatic script. Listen, really listen to what they say. Those moments, even when brief, reset something in the nervous system. They remind your body that genuine contact is possible here. That shifts the entire experience. Curiosity as a social tool. Before you walk into a crowded space, prepare what I call curiosity anchors. 3 open-ended questions you can ask almost anyone. Not clever questions, not icebreakers designed to impress, genuine questions. For example, what's been on your mind lately? What are you looking forward to? What do you do to unwind when life gets heavy? The trick isn't just asking, it's what you do with the answer. When someone feels genuinely heard, they relax and share more. Even if the conversation doesn't go especially deep, the sense of connection it creates is far stronger than a dozen surface exchanges. And when you offer something honest about yourself in return, not a performance, just a real detail, you often find others feel safe enough to let their guard down too. That is where real moments live, not in the perfectly formed impression, but in the small, honest crack in the surface. When the space isn't worth it. At the same time, and this matters, it's worth learning to recognize when a particular environment offers you nothing. Some spaces are dominated by competitiveness, performativity, or a shared commitment to keeping everything at arm's length. No amount of curiosity or effort will make those settings genuinely fulfilling. Staying in them, hoping something will shift, often only deepens the emptiness. Pay attention to your body as a guide. Is your chest tightening? Are your thoughts drifting? Do you find yourself reaching for your phone not to connect but to escape? Those are signals. The space isn't offering you anything real. Protecting your energy, stepping away, redirecting your focus, or leaving entirely is not avoidance. It is a conscious decision to treat your emotional well-being as worth protecting. Building your core circle. Underneath all of this is something simple and important. The antidote to crowded loneliness is not a different crowd, but a smaller, deeper one. Human beings were not wired to feel genuinely connected by sheer volume. Our nervous systems respond to depth, consistency, and reciprocity. You don't need an overflowing social calendar. You need 3 to 5 people who truly know you and who let you truly know them. Building that circle starts with honesty. Think of the 20 people you interact with most often and ask yourself, how do I feel after spending time with them? Not what they're like. How do I feel? Do I leave calmer, more myself, more grounded? Or do I leave restless, smaller, vaguely depleted? Circle the names for whom the answer is genuinely positive. Those are your people. If the list feels shorter than you'd like, that's not failure, that's clarity. Clarity about where to invest, where to gently reconnect, and where to begin. For connections that have drifted, reach out with specificity. Not, we should catch up sometime, but want to get coffee Thursday, or can we talk this weekend? I've missed your voice. Use that time not just to exchange updates, but to ask real questions, share a little more honestly, and remind each other why the connection matters. Bonds like these reignite faster than most people expect because the warmth was never really gone. It just needed someone to reach toward it first. Breaking free from distractions that numb loneliness. Loneliness rarely arrives as a sharp, sudden pain. More often, it lingers like a low, constant hum, familiar enough to blend into the background, easy enough to drown in the noise of a full life. Work, streaming, notifications, social plans, even the scrolling we do in the spare moments between everything else. These aren't idle habits. They serve a purpose. They keep the quiet at bay. The quiet is where the feeling lives. But here is what numbing ultimately does. It doesn't erase loneliness. It presses it down. Until life slows, until the emails stop, the screen goes dark, and the weekend plans fall through, and then it rushes back, often sharper than before. If you want to break that cycle, you cannot keep running from the feeling. You have to turn toward it, not all at once, slowly, with care, but turn toward it. Recognizing your avoidance patterns. The first step is simply noticing. Most avoidance doesn't feel like avoidance. It looks like productivity, entertainment, or socializing. From the outside, it looks completely reasonable. Spend one day paying attention. Every time you reach for your phone, turn on a show, or bury yourself in another task, pause for a moment and ask, why now? Am I genuinely interested in this? Or am I avoiding stillness? Jot down what you were about to do and how you felt just before the urge hit. Patterns will emerge. You may find you scroll most when you're anxious, work late when you're sad, and binge watch when you feel disconnected but don't want to risk rejection by calling someone. Seeing it written down can be startling and almost always useful, because awareness is the beginning of choice. The 5 most common numbing patterns each wear a different disguise. Overwork is perhaps the most socially celebrated. It looks like ambition, feels like progress, and almost no one questions it. But when you start saying yes to every project, replying to messages at midnight, and letting weekends vanish into urgency, not because you love the work, but because you cannot stand the quiet, something else is happening, and its cost is steep. Work can fill your schedule. It cannot fill your need for closeness. Social media mimics togetherness without fulfilling it. A like or a quick comment doesn't replace eye contact, shared laughter, or the comfort of someone's full attention. It keeps you in a loop, checking, comparing, scrolling that often leaves you emptier than before. Hours pass, and not only do you lose time you could have spent on meaningful exchanges, but your perception of your own life warps in the process. Everyone else seems more loved, more connected, more alive. Gaming, binge watching, perpetual productivity each offers a version of the same thing. A controlled world where the stakes feel safe compared with a genuine relationship, which is unpredictable and requires a kind of vulnerability you cannot pause or restart. They are not evil. They become a problem when they become your only lifeline. Sitting with the feeling. Once you recognize the pattern, the real work begins. Creating moments small at first, when you sit with the loneliness rather than smothering it. Start with 10 minutes a day. Find a quiet spot. Turn off everything. Sit. Notice what surfaces. Sadness, restlessness, emptiness, perhaps a kind of anger. Don't analyze it. Don't push it away. Just observe, as you would listen to a friend sharing something difficult. You can even say to yourself, quietly, this is loneliness. It feels like this right now, and I can stay with it for a little while. The first few times, it will feel unbearable, a weight in the chest, an urge to reach for the phone. But like any skill, it gets easier with practice. Over time, you may begin to hear what the feeling is asking for. Maybe a deeper conversation. Maybe reconnecting with someone you've been avoiding. Maybe simply more compassion for yourself. Loneliness becomes less monstrous when you stop running from it, not because it disappears, but because you discover you can be with it without collapsing. Replacing avoidance with nourishment. Once you understand what the feeling is pointing to, you can begin replacing the habit of numbing with something that actually meets the need. If scrolling is really about craving connection, replace 30 minutes of it with a call to someone you trust. If overworking is shielding you from emptiness, make space for something that nourishes you without pressure to perform. A creative practice, time outdoors, cooking with full attention. These don't have to be large or time-consuming. The point is to trade temporary escape for something that leaves you feeling seen and grounded, even if only by yourself. It also helps reshape your environment. Numbing habits stick because they're easy, one tap away, and always available. So make them slightly harder. Set a screen cutoff for the evenings. Keep your phone off the table during meals. Use those small pockets of time to be present with those around you or to sit and breathe for a moment. These minor adjustments disrupt the autopilot that sustains avoidance. Over time, they make space for something different to grow. Think of it this way. You are not quitting distractions, you are renegotiating your relationship with them, shifting from reliance to choice. That shift, however gradual, is where the cycle finally begins to break. How to make and keep real friends in the modern world. Making real friends today takes more deliberate effort than it once did. Friendships no longer form as they did when shared environments, schools, neighborhoods, long-term workplaces did most of the work. Adults move often, communicate more through screens than in person, and carry a cultural inheritance that has taught them to be self-sufficient and to keep their needs to themselves. And social media is holding up its curated gallery of other people's closeness, quietly suggesting that everyone else has figured it out and that you are the only one standing outside the warmth. None of that is true, but the feeling is very common. The first step to changing it is simply this: let go of the idea that friendship should happen without effort. Why it feels harder now. One of the biggest reasons adult friendship is difficult is transience. People frequently change jobs, cities, and social circles. The natural repetition, seeing the same faces, building familiarity through shared routines that once made bonds almost inevitable, is now rare. A generation ago, you might have lived in one town for years, seeing the same neighbors and colleagues, until closeness grew almost by accident. That organic structure has largely dissolved. In its absence, you have to create what life used to provide automatically. The shift toward online-first interaction adds another layer. Social media and messaging apps make it easy to meet people and stay loosely in touch. But they rarely provide what closeness requires: undistracted attention, body language, shared silence, and the subtle cues that build trust over time. A steady stream of likes and quick messages can feel like connection, yet in a moment of genuine need, you realize those friends remain somehow distant. Use digital contact as a bridge, not a destination. It is useful for coordinating and staying warm, but the friendship itself has to have real presence somewhere. Calls, walks, shared meals, a time when two people are actually in the same mental space. Taking the first step. The single most important shift: stop waiting. In adult life, nobody is going to organize your social world for you. If you want a connection, you will need to initiate it, even when it feels slightly awkward, even if there is a chance the person will be busy. Even when part of you is certain it's too much effort for a maybe. Start with the people already in your orbit: coworkers you respect, neighbors you've been meaning to talk to, and old friends whose energy you miss. You don't need instant closeness. You need a baseline of mutual goodwill and the willingness to reach toward it. Pick one person each week. Reach out with something specific. Want to grab coffee on Thursday? There's a walk I've been meaning to take. Want to come along? Specific invitations signal genuine intent. They say, I am genuinely interested in spending time with you, not just offering a pleasant nothing. What turns casual into real? Once you are spending more time with people, the ingredient that turns casual into something genuine is presence paired with small acts of honesty. You don't need to bare your deepest fears in the second meeting, but share something real, something that's on your mind. Talk about a challenge you're navigating. Express genuine curiosity about their life. Ask a follow-up question that shows you were listening last time. These small acts make people feel seen and valued. And that feeling of being truly seen, not just politely acknowledged, is the foundation everything else is built on. Consistency is the other cornerstone. More friendships fade not from conflict but from drift. Life gets busy, no one takes the initiative, and promising connections slowly thin to occasional texts. The antidote is simple rhythms. A standing coffee every other week, a monthly dinner, a phone call on Sunday evenings. These don't have to be long. Reliability is what matters. Predictable contact removes the friction of constantly renegotiating plans and reassures both people that the friendship is not an afterthought. Mastering the skill of clear and honest communication. Maintaining any close relationship requires something our culture of ghosting and disappearing has made unfashionable: honest communication about needs and limits. If you feel distant or undervalued, say so without blame or drama. "I've missed our time together lately. Can we make more space for it?" More often than not, people respond with relief because they were also feeling the drift and waiting for someone to name it. Say no when you genuinely can't commit, rather than agreeing and later resenting it. Honesty, even when slightly uncomfortable, builds the kind of trust where both people know where they stand. And accept that not every connection will deepen into a close friendship. Some people will remain on the surface despite your efforts. That is not failure, it is sorting. It is the natural process of finding the small circle of people who will genuinely show up, reciprocate, and stay. Each not quite right point brings you closer to those who are. Pour your time and energy into those who do show up, into the bonds where both people are genuinely glad the other exists. Over time, those friendships become anchors not by luck, but because you chose, again and again, to invest in the connections that truly nourish you. Detaching from digital validation. One of the quietest and most corrosive sources of modern loneliness is something many of us barely notice we do: checking, refreshing, posting, then checking again to see how it landed. Not because we are shallow, but because the brain is very, very good at hijacking a real need, the need to feel seen, valued, and connected, and redirecting it toward the fastest available source of temporary relief. And in our world, that source is always one tap away. The pull of the dopamine loop. Each like, each comment sparks a tiny release of dopamine, the brain chemical tied to reward and anticipation. Here is the key: it is not the satisfaction that hooks you, it is the anticipation. Dopamine drives you to seek, refresh, check, and post again, chasing the next small burst. Over time, your brain learns to use these moments for emotional regulation, to fill the gaps when you're bored, lonely, or quietly insecure. The problem: dopamine doesn't deliver calm or genuine belonging. It stirs up the craving for more. The more you feed it with digital signals, the more undernourished the deeper systems become, the ones that run on oxytocin and serotonin, the chemicals of actual trust, actual safety, actual closeness. You end up chasing something that can never fill the void it keeps pointing you toward. The signs creep in quietly. Your mood begins to rise and fall with your engagement rates. You feel a flash of elation when notifications come in, and unease, almost a flatness, when they don't. You catch yourself tailoring what you share, not to express something true, but to perform something that will land well. The version of yourself you present online gradually diverges from the one who actually exists, and somewhere in that gap, you feel lonelier than ever. Breaking the loop without burning everything down. You don't have to delete every app or retreat from the digital world. You need to break the automatic loop to create enough friction so that checking becomes a choice rather than a reflex. Move your apps off your home screen. Log out after each use, so opening them requires a deliberate step. Set aside 2 specific windows each day to check notifications, rather than grazing on them throughout. Each time you resist the urge to check, replace it with something that grounds you. Step outside for a moment. Text a specific person directly, or throw yourself into a task with full attention. The first week feels restless, almost itchy, because your nervous system is accustomed to constant spikes. Sit with that restlessness. It passes. What replaces it is a quieter, more durable kind of steadiness. Building internal validation. The real work is not just interrupting the loop, it's creating something more stable to stand on instead. Each morning, write down 3 things about yourself that you genuinely value, things no algorithm can give or take away. Your creativity, your honesty, your ability to make someone feel less alone. Each night, write down 3 actions you took that day, no matter how small, that align with who you want to be. This practice sounds modest, but its effect is not. Over weeks, it shifts the source of your self-worth from external reactions you cannot control to internal evidence you generate. Your confidence begins to draw on what you are doing, not on how many people tapped a heart on it. Pair this with a daily digital detox window, at least 1 hour when every screen is out of reach. Use that time for something that draws your full attention to the present. A walk with nothing in your ears, cooking with full attention, a creative practice, or a face-to-face conversation. At first, this hour will feel uncomfortable. Your brain will reach for the familiar fireworks, redirect it gently and repeatedly. Within a week or two, those offline windows often become the most centering moments of your day. Reconnecting offline. The final and most powerful step: replace the digital signal with the real one. Each day, aim for at least 1 interaction your body can register as presence: a brief phone call, a coffee, even a 5-minute conversation with a neighbor. Something where both people are physically present, or at least vocally present, where your nervous system can pick up the cues it is designed to receive. Tone of voice, real laughter, and the sense of being in the same emotional space as another human being. These moments do what notifications never can. They activate oxytocin and serotonin, the chemicals of genuine security. They linger. They settle your nervous system rather than winding it tighter. And they slowly teach your brain what real connection feels like, making the digital approximation easier to recognize for what it is. When your core needs for connection and calm are met in real life, the digital world loses its compulsive pull. It becomes a tool again, useful, convenient, and no longer the primary place you go to find out whether you matter. And you do matter. You need a more durable way to hold that knowledge than a notification count. Overcoming social anxiety and fear of rejection. Social anxiety and fear of rejection might be 2 of the most powerful forces that keep people isolated even when they ache for connection. The dread of judgment or exclusion grows so heavy that you either avoid social situations entirely or show up guarded and tense. That guardedness often produces the very outcomes you feared: stilted conversations, awkward silences, and an early exit. The cycle deepens. Each time you avoid, you get less practice. The rare moments when opportunities arise feel even more daunting. And so the isolation grows not because you chose it, but because the anxiety made choosing otherwise feel like too much. Understanding the fear loop. What actually happens when anxiety hits before a social situation? Your nervous system is doing its job. When you anticipate judgment, your brain's threat detector fires as if you're facing real danger. Your heart races, muscles tighten, adrenaline surges, thoughts tumble over each other. To your anxious mind, these sensations feel like proof that something is going wrong, but they are not. They are your body's alarm system responding to a perceived risk. People who seem endlessly confident experience similar surges. The difference is that they have learned to interpret those sensations as tolerable, even temporary, rather than catastrophic. The pounding heart is not a warning that you are about to fail. It is just energy. It passes. The other part of the fear loop is avoidance, and this is where it becomes self-sustaining. Every time you pull back, cancel the plan, or stay quiet in the group, the tension eases. Your heart slows, and a false sense of safety settles in. Your brain notes, retreat worked. The problem is that retreat also teaches your brain that social spaces are dangerous. The more you avoid, the fewer corrective experiences you have, the moments that would prove to your nervous system that the fear was exaggerated, that people are not scrutinizing you, that awkward silences pass, and that you can survive the occasional cold shoulder and still be fine. By staying away, you never give your nervous system the data it needs to recalibrate. The cycle feeds itself. But it can be interrupted not by willpower or performance, but by small, deliberate steps that broaden what your nervous system considers safe. Building confidence through small exposures. Think of building social confidence the way you'd build physical strength gradually, at the edge of your current capacity, with enough repetition so that what was once difficult becomes ordinary. Level 1. Micro exposures. Tiny, controlled interactions that spark only a flicker of discomfort, a smile and eye contact with a stranger, asking a cashier how their day is going, saying hello to a neighbor instead of looking away. These interactions don't need to lead anywhere. Their purpose is to show your nervous system again and again that brief social contact is not dangerous. Level 2. Low-stakes conversations. Interactions that last a bit longer and include brief moments of genuine presence. Chatting with a coworker about something beyond logistics. Asking an acquaintance a real question and truly listening to the answer. Letting a piece of yourself show, not a confession, just a detail, an opinion, or a laugh that is truly yours. Level 3. Situations that used to feel daunting. A party where you don't know many people. Speaking up in a group and inviting someone to spend time with you. By the time you reach this level, you will have accumulated enough small wins that the nerves, though still present, feel familiar rather than paralyzing. You know you can get through them because you have. Reframing rejection. Rejection will always sting a little. That is not something to erase. Your brain is wired to treat exclusion as a signal, and that wiring runs very deep. But rejection need not become a verdict. A simple 4-step method for processing it without letting it take hold. First, name it factually. That person didn't respond the way I hoped, not I got rejected because I'm unlikable. Stick to the event, not the interpretation. Second, contextualize it. What might have been going on for them? Rejection is usually about timing, circumstances, and compatibility, rarely about your fundamental worth. Third, extract any genuine lesson. Was there something about your approach you'd adjust, or is there nothing to learn here except that this person wasn't the right match? Fourth, redirect. Take one small step forward, text someone else, show up for something, keep moving. And this, keep your social world filled with small, regular moments of positive contact. Even brief interactions, a genuine exchange with a colleague, a laugh with someone in a queue, activate your brain's social bonding systems. They remind your body that you are still connected to the world, even if one connection didn't work out. Rejection feels sharpest when it's your only data point. Build enough daily warmth around it, and it becomes one moment among many, rather than the headline of your week. The art of healthy solitude. There is a difference between being alone and being lonely. It sounds obvious when stated plainly, but for many people, perhaps most, the two feel almost identical. Alone time triggers the same unease, the same restless search for distraction, and the same quiet conviction that something is missing. This chapter is about learning to tell them apart, and about discovering that solitude, when approached with intention, is not a void to endure. It is a place to return to, a place that, perhaps surprisingly, makes everything else better. Why solitude feels frightening. Part of why solitude feels threatening is cultural. From an early age, we absorb the message that being alone signals failure. Our feeds are full of images of people in motion, surrounded by others, perpetually engaged. Togetherness is sold as the pinnacle of a full life. Solitude, in contrast, is associated with sadness, incompleteness, or being left out. No wonder our nervous systems treat quiet time as a low-level threat. Even when nothing is wrong and we are perfectly safe, the body has been trained to interpret alone as a warning. Solitude is also frightening because it strips away the distractions that keep difficult feelings at bay. When there is no conversation, no entertainment, no screen between you and the quiet, whatever has been simmering surfaces, the stress you've been managing, the uncertainty you've been outrunning, the feelings you haven't quite known how to handle. If you've been leaning on others or on constant stimulation to keep those things submerged, solitude can feel like a magnifying glass focused on everything uncomfortable, which is why the instinct is to fill it immediately with anything at all. The problem is that the filling never resolves what's underneath. It only postpones it. And the accumulation of postponed feelings makes the quiet feel more threatening with each passing month. Redefining what solitude is. The shift is this: stop treating solitude as something to endure and start treating it as a skill to develop. Skills develop in small, deliberate steps. Start with 5 or 10 minutes alone without your usual buffers. Use that time for something that keeps you grounded and present. A slow walk with nothing in your ears. Quiet breathing, noticing what's happening in your body. The sounds and textures of the space you're in. Not profound, just present. The point is not to make it meaningful right away. It is to let your body learn repeatedly and patiently that being alone does not have to mean panic or emptiness. With repetition, those doses of quiet begin to teach your nervous system something it may have forgotten, that you can be with yourself and that the quiet is not the enemy. As those moments become more familiar, something begins to shift. The heavy quality of solitude starts to lighten. What once felt like a void begins to feel like space. Your thoughts may flow more clearly. Something like creativity may appear at the edges of your awareness. Your body may feel calmer without the constant alertness of waiting for the next stimulus. Practices for peaceful solitude. A simple ritual, 15 minutes a day, consistently can do more for your relationship with yourself than almost anything else. It can take any form that draws your attention to the present meditation, sitting quietly and following your breath, gently returning to it whenever your thoughts wander. A creative practice, writing, drawing, making music, anything that produces the state of flow where time softens and restlessness fades, a slow walk without headphones, where you actually inhabit your surroundings. Pair any of these with a brief self-check-in. Ask, what am I feeling right now? Not to fix or analyze it, to name it. I feel restless. I feel a kind of sadness. I feel surprisingly calm. Then ask, what is this feeling pointing toward? Anxiety often points toward uncertainty. Sadness toward a need for comfort or closeness. Restlessness toward a desire for movement, purpose, or change. Respond to what you find with the same gentleness you would offer a friend who came to you with the same feeling. That's it. That is the whole practice. Over time, it quietly transforms you. You stop treating your inner world as a place to escape. You start treating it as a place to live. Solitude as foundation for connection. Here is the paradox on which this chapter rests. People who know how to be at ease with themselves tend to have better relationships, not worse ones. When you can be alone without distress, you stop approaching other people as a source of rescue. You stop clinging to relationships to escape your inner world or pouring more need into them than they can hold. You connect because you want to, not because you fear what will happen if you don't. That shift in posture changes the quality of how you show up. It makes the connections you build more reciprocal, more genuine, and better able to bear the natural weight of a real relationship. Solitude and connection are not opposites. They are partners. Time alone gives you space to rest, reflect, and return to yourself so that when you reach toward others, you offer something whole. And time with others gives solitude its meaning so that the quiet doesn't harden into isolation, but stays soft, restorative, and chosen. When those two are in balance, loneliness loses its grip. Not because you are never alone, but because when you are, it feels like a pause, not a punishment. Rebuilding a life of connection and meaning. Everything we have covered in this audiobook, untangling yourself from digital validation, building a core circle, learning to sit with difficult feelings, facing anxiety, making solitude nourishing, and developing the courage to reach out to people, none of it creates lasting change as a single insight. It creates lasting change in rhythm. A connected, meaningful life is not a destination. It is a way of living day after day through small choices that add up to something that can truly hold you. The daily foundation. Your relationship with yourself is the foundation. Each day, take 5 quiet minutes, morning or evening, for a simple check-in. Ask yourself 3 questions. How am I feeling right now? What do I need most today? And what one action can I take to meet that need or to show genuine care for someone else? Writing these down, even briefly, anchors you to your inner state. It stops the subtle daily drift toward autopilot, the drift that pulls you toward avoidance, scrolling, and checking whether the world still approves of you. Over time, these 5 minutes become the most important of your day, because they ensure that what you choose to do with your hours comes from somewhere real, rather than from reflex. The weekly rhythm. Beyond the daily, build a weekly rhythm that balances 3 elements: solitude for rest, personal growth for momentum, and genuine connection for belonging. No single area should bear the full weight of your emotional life. Protect 2 or 3 blocks of solitude each week. Treat them like any other non-negotiable commitment. These are the moments when your nervous system resets and you process what has been accumulating, when you hear yourself without anyone else's needs getting in the way. Pair those with 1 or 2 activities that give you a sense of forward motion, something you are learning, creating, contributing to, or building. These activities ensure that your sense of meaning doesn't depend entirely on other people's presence or approval. Your life has direction, independent of who is watching. And then your connections themselves, 2 or 3 meaningful interactions a week, chosen deliberately, dinners with close friends, a class or group activity you genuinely enjoy, a regular check-in with someone whose company leaves you feeling lighter. Within this structure, there is still room for spontaneity and flexibility, but the pillars, self-connection, purpose, and belonging, remain constant. When life inevitably shifts, when weeks become chaotic, lonely, or uncertain, you can return to the structure and find your footing again. Your connection blueprint. Think of your social world as something you design, rather than something that happens to you. Start by defining what your ideal balance of solitude, friendship, and community looks like, not the version you think is normal, but the one that genuinely leaves you feeling anchored and alive. How much time alone do you need to function well? What kind of friendships make your life feel full? What sense of belonging to something beyond yourself matters to you? Then look honestly at the relationships you currently have. Which ones leave you feeling supported, seen, and lighter when you part ways? Those deserve more of your time and care. Which ones consistently drain you, feel one-sided, or no longer reflect who you are becoming? Those can be gently and respectfully allowed to recede. And where do you sense genuine absence, the kinds of connection that are missing and that would enrich your life? Those are the spaces worth moving toward, slowly and with intention. You don't have to do this all at once. Start with 1 relationship to deepen, 1 habit to release, and 1 new context to explore. The blueprint is not a schedule, it is a compass, something to return to when you feel adrift and to adjust as you grow. Living as a connector. Finally, consider what it means to bring everything you've learned not just to your own life, but outward. There is a difference between collecting people and connecting with them. Collecting is about volume, the growing number of names on your phone, the expanding network. Connecting is about depth, the few relationships where both people are genuinely present, genuinely invested, and genuinely glad the other exists. Living as a connector means prioritizing depth over breadth and modeling that priority for the people around you. Check in with the people who matter not just when they post, but when you think of them. Introduce 2 people in your life who you sense would genuinely enrich each other. Show up not just for the celebrations, but also for the ordinary Tuesdays when someone needs a voice to talk to. And when you see someone standing at the edge of a crowded room, feeling invisible, reach out to them, because you know what that feels like now. And you know that one genuinely present exchange can change an entire evening for both of you. A life that feels like yours. We have been through a lot together. We've looked at why the world we live in produces this particular loneliness and why it is not a sign that something is wrong with you. We've examined the difference between stimulation and nourishment, and between being surrounded and being known. We've talked about the patterns that keep us numbing, the fears that keep us avoiding, and the walls we have built against rejection that have also kept out the closeness we came here for. And we've talked about the way back, not as a single dramatic turn, but as a slow, deliberate reorientation, day by day, habit by habit, small honest moment by small honest moment. This loneliness was never the truth about who you are. It was a signal, and now you know what it was asking for. The practices in this audiobook do not make loneliness disappear. Loneliness is part of the human experience. It will visit everyone, regardless of how rich their inner life or how warm their relationships. But they do change your relationship to loneliness. Loneliness becomes a nudge rather than a collapse, a signal that something needs tending, and you now know how to tend it. Over time, these practices add up to a life that feels genuinely inhabited, where your solitude feels like rest rather than abandonment, where your friendships are built on real knowledge of each other, the mundane, the difficult, and the surprising, rather than the polished surface of what we show online, where your sense of your own worth doesn't rise and fall with a notification count. When you walk into a room, you are actually present. Here is what I would ask of you in the next 24 hours. Not transformation, just one small step toward what is real. Conduct your connection audit. Think back over the last few days and ask, which interactions left you feeling lighter, more yourself, more alive? Which left you depleted, hollow, or somehow less? Just notice. Let the pattern become visible. And then pick one person, someone whose presence in your life you genuinely value, not a message that will get lost in a thread. A real reach, a voice note, a call, an invitation for coffee, or a simple line that says, "I was thinking about you. I'd love to hear your voice." That is the entire assignment, one real reach. Over the next week, build one small structure into your days, either a 5-minute check-in with yourself or a daily moment of genuine offline contact, not both at once. One. Let it become steady before you add anything. In the next month, sketch your connection blueprint. Write down, even roughly, what your ideal balance of solitude, friendship, and belonging looks like. Which relationships deserve more care? Where does your life feel genuinely sparse? And 1 or 2 contexts where you might begin to find what is missing. These are not glamorous moves. They won't trend. They won't generate content. They won't produce the kind of dramatic, instantaneous shift that gets celebrated in our world. What they will do quietly, persistently, over time, is weave something sturdier than anything noise could build, thread by thread, until the heaviness begins to lift, until you start to feel what belonging actually feels like when it is not performed but lived. The world may be noisier than it has ever been. Loneliness may be more widespread and more disguised than any previous generation has experienced. But you are not the noise. You are not the scroll, the like, or the carefully curated image. You are the person beneath it all, the one who feels the ache and is brave enough to ask what it means. That person deserves a real connection. A real connection is possible. Not someday. Now. Starting with one quiet, honest, and courageous reach toward another human being.